Okay, that's fine.
Okay. As an option road, it'll be our pace staircase. Okay. Is anyone not ready? Oh, by the way, is this speed we're going at? Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Can I go a little bit faster?
Yeah, sure.
Is anyone not ready? Okay. To expand our scheme of space, both the team future energy European space colonization, but right now more investment is needed to develop both the stuff and fusion can provide that vastly more energy needed for space than fossil fuels. The first future propulsion deployment can be as early as 2030 enough investments added. This is crucial for many existential risks, such as risks exist, such as warming before or after it will eventually inevitably lead to extinction. We need a way out. Then let's go on to what they said in their rebuttal. They said, one, that France has fusion, but one, no, it's only in early stages of development because fusion has high cost. But then two, who said France would share their technology with us? In that it says indicate that US specifically is key to space colonization. Then they say that there's no net positive energy, but there's no that's only specifically on fusion. We also say that fission would be more effective than what we have right now. Then also they say that space colonization leads to militarization, but there's no warrant as to why the actors would attack each other in that card. And then they also say that infinite suffering is worse than extinction, but there's not perpetual suffering if we move away from the existential risks on Earth, but also suffering is inherent to human life. If you're making that argument, then you're trying to say that humans just shouldn't exist. Then they also say that aliens would result in war, but there's no proof of humanoid alien life. Microorganisms can't attack us. And then they also say that it's impossible to live outside of Earth, but that's with the energy we have right now. We need to have energy and bring resources to survive. The app fixes this. And then we'll concede that climate change is inevitable. It means extinction also happens in the neck. Meaning that they can't try to say that animal suffering is worse than extinction. That is worse than extinction because extinction happens in both worlds. But then, which is why we need to escape and go to space. But then they say that like Russia's about gas, not oil, but they still can't force. Sorry, I'll talk about more answers to their contention in a second. But then on their contention to a factory farming, they said that their uniqueness evidence said that decreasing factory farming is still on the table, so it's still rising the status quo. The app doesn't change anything. Then let's go on answers to their case. Remember, on their first contention, one, Russian collapse is inevitable. It happens in the status quo. But then two, Putin wants to maintain power, so Russia lacks the organizational structure and leaders needed to successfully attack. And then three, no Russian strike. The US has capabilities to attack back, deterring Russia. None of those have to be specific to oil. And then also four, no Russian nuclear strikes within with Ukraine. Then on their contention too. remember that their own evidence says factory farming is on the rise, it's completely non-belief, but then two, we capture their impact, because preventing climate change from worsening means we prevent animal suffering the best. But then on the way, we outweigh in magnitude, extinction has infinite magnitude, as it's killing not just the current generation, but all the possible future ones, whereas the next never quantifies their impact, the extinction will impacts on Earth cause animal suffering too. But then we outweigh in probability, we know there's a 100% chance of extinction at some point, and we have the only side that has to sustain, whereas the negative no chance of solving for the already increasing number of animals in factory farms. Then you prefer top probability over time frame. It doesn't matter when the event hypothetically occur, if there's no probability that it does in the first place, and then you prefer magnitude over time frame. If the priority is saving the most lives, you're going to prioritize more lives later than fewer sooner. Thus we are G4 firm.
Oh, we'll take that. Yeah, the prep started. We have not zero.
Yeah, it's,
Wait, we go a little bit over.
you have like 30 seconds.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, we have.
Yeah, sure you can.
Yeah,
Your school sweatshirts are so nice, I wish the nurse made one.
I know, we have to.
So as a top down, it'll just be, I'll be going on our case, just doing some extending, weighing, responding to what they said, like giving the meta weighing stuff. And then going down to like their case. Okay, so first on LNG, sure, we'll consider non-unique collapses is inevitable, and Russia has already cooked, which means that collapse anyway happens in Russia that anyway cooked, so we will take out of that. Next, we're going for factory farming and space culture. Factory farming will collapse due to resource scarcity and energy security prices that drive the cost. However, farming boosts nuclear power plants, which reduces the cost of agricultural systems by providing a stable and cheap source of electricity. Sustainable factory farming outweighs extinction. More animals die every year than all humans that have ever existed, and their neo-existence causes huge amounts of suffering because factory farms have terrible conditions. On to the way. First, magnitude. Trillions of animals die each year in terrible conditions that causes infant suffering. It's worse than human pain because animals are less intelligent and have smaller brains, which means that they have to feel more pain to be more not to take action again. They just want this. Even if humans die, even if every human dies, that had most temporary pain, whereas factory farming is unending suffering. Magnitude comes first. It inherently controls the severity of the action, which is the only reason we care about probability or time frame. For example, a 1% risk of me dying next year outweighs a 100% chance of me sneezing tomorrow. Next, Climate change does not outweigh because A, we haven't seen the magnitude of human suffering as to the magnitude of animal suffering. B, way more animals than humans. And because of evidence of people dying in climate change is specific to people, not animals, they do not outweigh. Dawkins, remember the Dawkins evidence, which says that animals feel more pain than humans, so prioritize animal suffering. Prefer correlative evidence versus high school win. Additionally, also 10% suffering is worse than 0% suffering because we're actively suffering, and that's worse. Next, on to their case, extend terminal B on spacefall. They mishandle the impact zone. Militarization, yes, it does lead to militarization because other countries see China wouldn't just give up, they would also develop space weapons like tungsten bombs, which cause extinction. They should be able to warn, this is literally our warns. Next, on to SFIS, sentient simulations and external 100% suffering. That outweighs, ties back to our factory farming. Next, aliens causing existential war was dropped. They don't intervene for them. Nuclear progress says aliens would wage war. They have no evidence to back up aliens do not exist. 4, they said that we can survive with nuclear. Our card addresses psychological needs, which nuclear energy cannot solve, and we cannot survive in space. Next, they also dropped that COVID closed net. It shows that 2 years later in 2021, space causes existential risk. They dropped that too. Next, on climate, we are going for warming is Gen Z hype. 200 million years ago, temperatures were 10 degrees warmer, and plants were able to survive in space. That's all May 22 evidence. Next, we also go for mining offsets. Next, net energy gain J24, which says that uranium is it so energy intensive to mine, offsets any possible benefits created by nuclear energy, and therefore we are proud to negate it.
Okay, as first to give me the first question.
Sure.
Okay, let's talk about like the animal suffer more than we do, right? If we're moving animals away from the existential threats on Earth, I don't understand why you're saying we're worse for animal suffering.
Right, so let me clear this up right now, right? So what you are saying is that we will die from climate change and we need to invest in nuclear energy to prevent that. What we are saying is that if you invest in nuclear energy, that causes infinite suffering. Infinite suffering controls your way and
There's
your
already infinite suffering.
No, there isn't.
Animals are affected by climate change. You're aware of that?
Wait, that doesn't matter. Number one, no evidence was read. Number two, it
Okay,
was brought too late in the round.
Okay,
Number three,
also-
our suffering still outweighs.
That was in my summary, and also that.
What you say about climate change,
Droughts,
we
floods.
said that 100% suffering is worse than 0% suffering, and you agree that when you're like dead, you at that point you're 0% suffering. But we're saying you have to prioritize 100% suffering,
Infinite suffering.
which is
Happens over a long period.
Wait, animals suffer more in factory farms than they do like grazing in the grass.
Well,
Yeah.
there's
I
gonna
think
be
that's
no
pretty
more
obvious.
grasslands to graze in,
Right.
that's our point.
Wait, no, you have not.
No. But at that point, then there's 0% suffering, because if they're all dead, then it's 0% suffering, but we're saying we
Also,
prioritize 100%
You
suffering.
read that climate change is inevitable, right?
No,
No,
we
Yeah,
say that.
yeah, you did. You
Yeah.
can't just kick out your own response that you.
Yeah.
Read.
We just like project.
No, we conceded that, the rest of your rebuttal, we conceded,
agree to
which
it.
means that climate change
Sure.
is inevitable in both worlds, which means that
Sure.
extinction happens in both worlds, which means that you don't access infinite suffering.
No, we
There's
do have
extinction in
to
your world too.
We're saying that number one, we would say that if we can successfully prove climate change will not happen because we went for the other response. But
Yeah,
second, we
we
would say
did
the
it
space colonization turn is still standing, because if we get out, militarization, S-risk, alien war, and militarization of space all means that we suffer infinitely in space.
Okay.
They also
What
haven't, you guys haven't
humanoid
responded to
aliens
us.
exist? I did respond to those. What humanoid aliens exist? Like, can you give me an example of humanoid?
We give cards that say that aliens would wage an astronomical war against humans.
Yeah, but
Right,
you
but
get
like,
evidence of
which?
that.
Yes,
But-
that implies that
okay,
aliens
okay,
exist.
Okay, but even if what you're saying is true, still didn't respond to like militarization,
I
all you
did
say
respond.
is that there's no warrants in our
Yeah,
card,
no
right?
warrants are highlighted, first of all, but also like.
But
the
we
other
say that countries
wouldn't
like
have-
China wouldn't just give up, they would also develop their space weapons. Think there's
No,
something like
but they're not,
Canada.
but they don't have the capabilities to go to space, remember, it's the US that would be getting investment, it's the US that
Sure,
would be able
but
to go
still
to space like
you
that,
can
not.
go refer back to our evidence, which specifically says that competing nations and even like rogue people, like when we go to space, like disgruntled political prisoners or other people who are gonna be like deported to other planets or whatever, they and sort of celestial weapons will be developed and you'll get to bad actors,
There
that's
are-
inevitable development
Wait,
of
there are
tungsten
already
rods.
there are celestial weapons on.
Wait, no, they're not, we say
I
that
mean-
tungsten rods will specifically cause extinction.
Okay, wait, but then like, the other countries don't have the technology to
Wait.
get there.
We just say that
And
the general
people-
militarized, yeah, sure, even if the US is the only one militarizing space, they will militarize space. That causes not only extinction because of tungsten rods, but infinite suffering, like wherever you go,
What?
space colonization is conclusively
Wait,
bad for
so
that
you're
cause.
saying both sides of it,
Okay, we took 125 and 52, so I wanna say we have about 45.
Yeah, but is it okay if we take that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So
so,
I'm gonna 15.
Yeah.
Go on they class on when we class on and their turn. So they all class on and then I'm gonna wait and do that. Everybody ready? Oh, there is the analysis of animal suffering at an extinction is weighing, so we only have to respond to the summary, it's not a conceded point. Also, turns because animals suffer from climate change. We saw this as we take them with us to the space colonies, saving them from suffering from climate change, they never respond to this turn. But furthermore, we saw back the benefit anyways. Climate change is inevitable in their world. They made this argument, we conceded it before they reversed it. Okay, this is true in the round, and they never respond to our conceding of it. Climate change is inevitable, which means that they think that they're trying to save animals for them, they're trying to save animals for joy in the future, and they're it is actually going to happen, it's going to be destroyed anyways, it's inevitable. Going on to our case, on our space commission. Both fission and fusion energy are key to space colonization, but right now more investment is needed to develop both, especially fusion, produce vastly more energy it needs for space, called into fossil fuels. The first fusion propulsion deployment can be as early as 2030, and if precedent is added, this will save us from extinction, which is inevitable, it's a prior die. On the turn, on their weapons part. Other countries don't have the technology. Our evidence specifically says that U.S. nuclear innovation is key, and no other country can do it. The U.S. is the only one who can. If they invest, they never respond to it's conceded. Also, there's no warrants in the card for an attack. So there's no warrants for why they did for the impact. On the risk part, I already discussed it. On alien wars, complete hypothetical. There's no evidence or proof for human or alien, so we outweigh on probability because it's prior die. There's a 100% chance of extinction. Also, COVID does not argue that space call leads to extinction. That space call, yeah. He argues that it makes sure extinction doesn't happen, but more really this is our debate, not his, go based on the conclusion we reach, not the author. Going on to when. We outweigh on magnitude, extinction is infinite magnitude, it's not just killing the current generation, but also all the possible future ones, whereas the neg never quantifies their impact and extinction level impacts on the earth cause animal suffering too. Also, we are preventing infinite generations of animal joy. If they're trying to save animal joy in the future, we are the ones who are saving it best. Also, we outweigh on probability. Again, it's prior right. There's a 100% chance of extinction at some point. That is completely conceded on two fronts, not only through our case, but also through their response to climate. And the only side that helps us escape, it is try or die. For some probability, over time, it doesn't matter when the event hypothetically occurs, there's a low probability that doesn't take place in the first place. Thus, we affirm.
I will, so yeah, the order is factory farming, weighing, space call, and then like your case.
What's the last person?
Like your case. Okay. The thesis of this final focus will be estrus. If we prove estrus outweigh, you auto default to the negative. Let's extend factory farming again. Factory farms will collapse right now because they're unsustainable because of energy scarcity. But as soon as you affirm that boosts industrial agriculture, that means the factory farmers are back and they're torturing these animals. They're making these animals suffer, and that will outweigh any risk of extinction. And extend Dawkins, which is the only carded meddling in this debate that tells you that hey, you have to prioritize suffering risk because number one, animal brains are smaller, which means that the pain overloads their brains and it's harder to tell them what to do, and so they feel more pain, which outweighs human extinction. You can refer to that card. Then their near existence cause human amounts of suffering because factory farms again terrible conditions on weighing. Children of animals die every year in terrible conditions that cause infinite suffering. It's worse than human pain because animals are less intelligent, which means that feel more pain to be more. Magnitude comes first and inherently controls the severity of an action, which is the reason we care about probability or time frame. Then on their weighing. This controls your impact out. So even if we win a 0.001% of estrus, you auto default to the negative because as long as we know that estrus outweigh estrus because of 100% pain versus 0%, this warrant was conceded. So you should default neg. But on their arguments, they mishandled space call bad. They just said no warrant. They didn't read any cards. We've told you that militarization of space would lead to extinction because of tungsten rods and atmospheric explosions. Then on aliens, they said that there's no evidence, but we have the only card of evidence that says aliens would attack us. However, like extraordinary, you think this is, it doesn't matter. Hold the line there. That causes extinction. Then it causes infinite suffering. Cross after factory farming. Wait, if we go to space, that causes stellar technology, causes infinite suffering and sentient animals which enslave us, and that causes infinite suffering, which also outweighs. Then on the COVID stuff. COVID flows neg 2 years later in 2021 shows space called causes action to turn their own off against it. At that point, you cannot use COVID in their contention because he indicted himself on climate change. Insofar as they've considered that climate change is inevitable, like they kill their own offense. Also extend mining increases emissions, and the moment they say that CC is inevitable, kills off offense. You should break your balance for me.
Around everyone. Okay, well, I would ask on local policy. I think that you guys are taking a lot of liberties with your evidence. You're saying that it's saying things that it doesn't say. Like especially like the France evidence, yes, it's in the early stages of fusion, and like even your Dawkins evidence, it says it's even possible that non-human animals are capable of contention. Like it doesn't even say that it's possible, it says it's even possible. So I think that if you're gonna go all in on that, you need more warrants and you need to like actually have true evidence that says that, because I think you're kind of just, I don't know, elaborating a little bit more. Okay, what else? I think, oh yeah, you kind of screwed yourself when you went for 2 different responses on climate change. First saying that it's inevitable, and second saying that it's all like overhyped, because I don't even know what the world that you're going for looks like, because climate change is inevitable.